Hey, before we jump in, I want to give you a quick word about the partner that's making this summer series possible, and that's NextGrad. If you're in higher ed marketing, you already know the challenge. Students are getting bombarded with college messages every single day, and most of it just blends together. NextGrad takes a different approach. Instead of fighting for the attention online, they put your institution's message right inside the high school, the place where students actually are day in and day out. They're in more than 2,500 schools across North America, which means your future students might be walking past a Next screen right now. Hey, I've been following NextGrad for several years, and I love what they're doing. I think it's extremely creative. I've actually been able to work on some of the creative with my clients to get in front of the students, and it's making a big difference. And I got to say, I'm a big fan of these folks. If you want to be the institution they remember when it's time to decide, go check them out right now at nextgrad.com. NextGrad, where students see you first. Hey, welcome to the show. Today's guest is my friend, Harrison Soup Campbell. He's a Chief Growth Officer at NextGrad and a member of the Crossroads crew with me. Soup brings a rare full-circle perspective to higher education marketing and enrollment. He began his career as a high school teacher and a baseball coach before moving into admissions counseling. Hey, and just a fun fact, Soup also coached baseball at the high school that Zach Coffin, Vice President of the Higher Ed Marketer and producer, attended. So very small world connection, but that makes this episode even more fun. So later he continued his work in higher ed through his time at Zemi, helped shape the company's brand, community, and college partner experience. Now he's at NextGrad. Soup is focused on helping colleges and universities reach students earlier inside the high school environment through one of the largest in-school media networks in North America. In this episode, I'm going to spend time with Soup talking about his journey, talking about NextGrad, talking about the passion for higher education and why early awareness matters more than ever, and what the next big opportunity in higher ed marketing may involve showing up in the physical analog world again. So let's get started. I am so excited to have one of my dear friends, Soup Campbell, here today. And Soup, you know the drill. We always ask our guests, what's something interesting, surprising, something fun you've learned recently that everybody think would be pretty cool?
Oh my gosh, Bart. The only thing that I can really think of for this right now, you already know this, but a lot of our listeners probably don't know it. I recently just turned 50. Okay.
Woo-hoo. Welcome to the club, man.
if I'm being honest, Bart, like I'm kind of getting up in the old category now. And I used to, back in the day when I was younger, and I'd always look, these old people, like they just get into birds and gardening, and that's so weird. How does that happen? I can confirm I am now obsessed with birds. I've got that Merlin app. I'm out in the yard. I'm like, my wife and I just started this huge garden for the first time this year. I mean, every morning, the first thing I want to do when I wake up is get out there and check on the plants. So if you're in my age bracket and you're listening, you probably can relate to this. All you younger professionals out there, I'm just telling you, get ready. By the time you hit 50, you're going to enter this world.
Yeah, and one day you'll be at a conference, you'll look around with your friends and say, we're the oldest people here. What's going on?
Yeah, how does that happen?
It just happened to us recently.
It just literally happens overnight, and it's like, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I am so excited to talk with you a little bit about your journey and what's going on in your life, and I'm really grateful that you could join me today on the Higher Ed Marketer podcast. So first, I want to talk a little bit about your journey. I mean, you didn't just like all of a sudden get planted in higher ed, with these great relationships and things like that. So tell me a little bit about things. I recently learned your background as a high school teacher and coach, and you've been an admissions counselor, director, and dean along the way. So tell me a little bit about those roles and how they've informed where you are today. Yeah,
Bart, it's crazy. I've been talking to people more and more about this lately. It's just like, how do you get here?
Yeah,
exactly. Which is like, again, you look at my undergrad degree, from IU as secondary ed social studies. I was supposed to have a career teaching social studies. How am I here today? And I think one, that's just proof, when I talk to young people going through their educational journey today, like, I think that's just proof you can put so much stress and get so much anxiety around what do I need to choose to do or study, but really it's not going to define or keep you from going in any direction. And so, yeah, I think the one thing though that's central to all of it, Bart, is just, it's all been education.
Right.
It's all been just this passion of wanting to serve students and being involved in education, and whether that was on the secondary side or stumbling into the higher ed side, which we all kind of stumble into this, and then that transitioning over to working for these great companies. I think that's just always been the central focus. And I've just been very lucky and blessed and fortunate to every experience and opportunity has opened a door for another opportunity. And I've just always, had the courage to step forward in those roles, even sometimes when it was a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I always joke with people that, no little kid says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say a higher ed administrator of some kind.
So true. So true.
So tell me a little bit about your journey to NextGrad. What drew you to NextGrad? I've known NextGrad for years, and they've been a partner of the podcast, and grateful for that. But why did you feel this was like the next right step in your higher ed journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Bart, when I think about it, for me, all of us, we all have kind of unique, career goals and aspirations just in our own journey. And again, at 50 years old, you start looking at things differently. You start looking like you see, the runway that you've got left. And so for me, like, I've always really had that dream of having an opportunity to kind of serve on the highest level, executive level, a C-suite level, because I've wanted to be able to have that kind of influence to really, lead a company. And so this was the first opportunity in my career that I really had when Michael reached out to me. Michael's the CEO at NextGrad, reached out and kind of presented this opportunity. And so, for me, that was a real big part of it. I think one of the things I feel like I've noticed kind of over, the years is how many companies, Bart, in our industry, if you look at them, we have wonderful companies serving higher ed, but I've started looking like how many of them have executive level leadership that come from the college and university side.
That's a really good point.
And so I think not that you have to have that. You don't, that's not a requirement to be a wonderful company serving our industry. But I think I wanted to get in a position where I could show my friends and colleagues who are still over there working in admissions and enrollment at these colleges and universities, NextGrad can be a company that, hey, one of us is actually serving at the highest level of that company. And so I've stepped into this really cool role as chief growth officer. And I just think our industry is so much about trust and relationship. And I feel like, now NextGrad can be one of those companies that's kind of in that exclusive group where folks can feel like, hey, if we're working with them, we're working with Soup, he's one of us, we know they've got our best interests.
Good. Well, I want to get into a little bit more of those students and things in a second, but I remember when you made your announcement, you kind of used a newspaper, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So tell us a little bit about maybe the audience isn't familiar with that, but tell me a little bit about that and what inspired that, and what do you think that says about your approach to story brand and storytelling and brand and things like that.
Well, if you know me, I'm gonna try to do something crazy creative as far as when I make, decisions. That's always been in my background, doing fun content creation. But actually, the credit to that newspaper idea all goes to Erin Ward. She's our head of marketing at NextGrad. So she actually, reached out to me when she knew I was going to come on board and said, hey, I would love to do something kind of fun and different. And I actually was going to just, do the normal thing. This was going to be the first time I was like, I'm just going to update my LinkedIn. I'm not going to do anything. But like Erin really wanted to do it.
Good.
And so the crazy cool thing about that, me kind of bringing the newspaper up, and Bart, you even mentioned this to me previously. A lot of people, I think, just assumed that we made that with AI.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Erin actually created that newspaper. That was real and had it shipped to me for me to like really kind of open and use. But to me, there was like, what I love about that idea and concept more than anything to me is kind of what it actually represents. And a newspaper in and of itself represents that older, traditional, real, authentic way. That's what we're doing at NextGrad, right? Like that's what we're trying to, in a world that's changing and evolving, we're trying to still do something in a real, authentic way. And so I love that aspect of it too. Yeah. With me joining NextGrad, this type of media that's like traditional, real, physical, my real eyeballs on it. It was just like, it was like the perfect way to kind of introduce me. So I love doing that.
Well, I love that because I think you've heard me talk about this age of analog that I think we're going into. And it's something that I've been talking a lot about, reaching students and helping them. Because I think that their attention span, I mean, we hear the joke about, the goldfish has more attention span than a Gen Z student now. But I think that there's a shift going to this physical world and this idea of analog. And so one of the things I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit and talk a little bit more about, top of the funnel, talk about the higher ed marketing, the recruitment that we're all doing, and help me understand maybe why awareness matters, a little bit more than it matters a lot more than it ever has. I mean, the awareness before the inquiry. I mean, certainly we know the funnel, we know how inquiry and app and all that stuff work. But I know one of the big themes I wanted to kind of talk through a little bit is the importance of getting in front of students earlier. I think that a lot of times, we'll wait until, hey, we're going to buy the names the senior year. We're going to buy names junior year. I mean, if you're fortunate, you're buying names freshman and sophomore year. But, you really can't do anything until the PSAT and the tests are getting optional. And so why do you think it matters now to even get in front of them before you can even, get those inquiry names?
I just think the days of waiting to begin actively recruiting prospective students until they're juniors or seniors in high school, like those days are over. Like if that's, I'm just throwing it out there. If that is how you are still operating, you need to make some significant changes. And one of the things I've been asking a lot of people, and it's funny when I ask this question, because a lot of times they're like, I'm like, do you have an in-school media strategy? Like, do you have some type of like actual in the school, media strategy that's like allowing you to message and influence, prospective students as early as their freshman year of high school. And if you're not, I just feel like you're just falling even further and further behind because things are just growing. I mean, it's getting more and more competitive every day. I don't have to talk about the doom and gloom stuff. I mean, we know the demographic stuff. We know and so as things get more competitive, if you're waiting until they're juniors and seniors, like it's too late. You should be starting that influence much, much earlier in their journey.
And why do you think that is? I mean, I've got some ideas, but I'm just curious from your perspective is why do you think colleges are entering it, student journey so late, or, where are they doing that? And just unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you already mentioned it. I think it's because higher ed, traditionally, we are so stuck in our ways of doing things the same. Of doing things the same way we've always done it. And we're just still, I think there are so many of our friends over on that side that are just still trapped in that traditional funnel model, right? And you mentioned it. It's the way we do enrollment is we purchase our names, we load up that top of the funnel, and we start the spamming and the outreach. And that's the way we've been doing it for a long time. And that has to change. If you're relying on doing it that way, it's just not going to work, I think, in the future, how things are so quickly changing right now.
Yeah, Kaler Solutions has been a part of some research this past year with Capture, and then we also sponsored the NACAP and CCCU faith-based research on student perceptions and families and things. And I think it's a lot of the research kind of started figuring out that students are learning a lot more about your college, and they're thinking a lot more about college before they ever become an inquiry or even step foot on your campus. And so, talk through that a little bit, because I'm sure you're reading the same type of things and you're seeing that and talking to people. So maybe unpack that a bit.
Yeah, I think we have to be focused on this idea of kind of that early brand perception and awareness. And just how extremely important that is and how extremely important that's going to be in the coming years. I know, and Bart, maybe you've seen this too. Like we've got friends over there at Ambio EDU, they just had a recent research study where they looked at, I think, several thousand high school seniors. There were some really fascinating things in that study, but a couple things that I pulled out that were interesting to me. 2/3 of their students indicated they need video, first off, to better understand college, the environment. But then this other interesting stat that they found that was really surprising to me, nearly half, 47% of all of those seniors only applied to colleges that they had seen ads for.
Yeah.
That they had seen that messaging, that they had seen that early kind of brand saturation and influence. And so, to me, that's just showing how vitally important it is to get in front of their eyeballs much, much earlier than what we've traditionally been doing in the past.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of my clients about the idea of video first. Whatever content you're doing, do it video. It doesn't have to be the broadcast quality that we did 10, 20 years ago. I mean, if you got one of these in your pocket, go to town. And holding up my iPhone here, but it's the idea that being able to go out and capture content, and then you can turn it into a billion different things. You can turn it into long form video. You can turn it into blogs and posts and shorts and reels and, different types of advertising. I think there's a really good way to do that. But help me understand. I mean, there's a lot of college leaders listening right now and different people, and they're still focused on short-term enrollment results. And I get that. I mean, their backs are against the wall. We're recording this in the summer. A lot of people are sweating it right now. May maybe didn't turn out the way that they wanted. And so they're still trying to fill that class. But how would you help them understand, and maybe how would you make the case for investing in that awareness earlier up? I mean, I'm going to hear a lot of people say, hey, I just need more names. If I get more names, I'll be okay. And I just don't think that's the way it works.
Well, yeah, I think like we've been so heavily reliant on over the past few years, just our traditional digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
And how we reach and the money we spend for digital marketing. But what we're learning is like students just aren't going to click on stuff if they have no idea who you are.
Right.
So they're not they're not going to click it. They're not going to engage in it if you've not done the groundwork ahead of time to lay that foundation of that brand awareness, that saturation of who you are. So I think, that's one of the biggest things that I would just stress of why this is so valuable and why this isn't so important. I think part of your question there, Bart, also kind of ties into, the short-term kind of enrollment results or things that are out there. And I would actually argue, I don't think that there are really any silver bullets out there that can get you immediate short-term
they're not.
Results. And so I think, the colleagues that I'm speaking to and talking to, I'm just reminding them, look, you need to develop a significant, well thought out, long-term strategy, align yourself, find the companies you want to partner with that understand that are in this we want to be partnered with you for the long haul to develop a strategy for that long-term success. And be very wary of anyone out there making you the promise, jump on board here. This will get you the short-term results for this next cycle. I just don't think much of that really exists.
I don't think it does either. And I think that's really wise counsel that you've got there. As we've been talking, I mean, we've talked about NextGrad. We've been talking about awareness. We've mentioned video. Help people understand what NextGrad is. I'm sure there are people listening right now. They're like, I know Soup, I know Bart. I'm not sure I know NextGrad. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and thank you for just giving the platform here for me to introduce it to some folks that don't know about it. But you already mentioned. So the crazy thing about NextGrad, I think coming up here in July will be 7 years that NextGrad's been working. But basically, NextGrad connects students to college and career opportunities through this massive growing network of in-school media. And this is across K through 12 schools in North America, so US and Canada. And I like to think of this as true student first infrastructure. So directly in the high schools, providing colleges and universities this kind of conduit to get their messaging, to get their brand right in front of those student eyeballs. And so NextGrad helps simplify the journey for these students from high school to post-secondary success by delivering the educational, career, and scholarship opportunities directly where students spend their time each day. So that's kind of the can to that last line in there. But that's what we're doing, Bart, is building this kind of massive in-school media network, kind of a first of its kind. No one's ever done this in higher ed before, NextGrad. And so that's what we've built. And so we're allowing colleges and universities to step in and kind of own that hallway with their presence of getting in front of the students.
And what's that look like? I mean, you talked about media. I mean, is it posters? What does that look like?
Yeah. So there's kind of a couple different things that includes, right? So We've got a variety of different types of digital screens in different ways. So some of those could be those kind of tall vertical kiosk. They're basically 6 foot tall and 3 feet. They're hard to miss as every student walks by. Yeah. But now we've got, tens of thousands of digital screens that are more of that horizontal. And a lot of schools have these in every classroom. And so those are used oftentimes, the schools are using those for their own content, like athletic events this week or announcements and
things like that.
Yeah. And so now we're allowing colleges and universities to have spots on those to to present themselves. And yeah, you mentioned things like posters. We do a lot of like really cool poster placements if school districts aren't yet ready for all things digital. But then, Bart, what a lot of people don't realize too is we're not limited to that. Like we actually can do really cool things. I mean, we might have a college or university that says, man, this is our top feeder high school, and you all at NextGrad have really good relationships with them. Do you think they've got, we heard there's this one hallway and a row of lockers that weren't being used. Like, could we do some type of complete vinyl wrap over top of those? So we're also doing like really interesting projects and ideas really cool. That if a college comes to us and says like, man, you think that high school would ever on every one of the school lunchroom trays, let us do some cool like ad placement. Like we can do like really fun special projects as well. Yeah.
I like that. So a lot of what you've been talking about is the high school. Why do you think that I think it's obvious. I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but I also want to help you kind of define what makes the high school environment such a powerful place for colleges and universities to show up. I mean, everybody always talks about, hey, we need our digital plans and digital media. We do that. I understand that. But what makes it different about the high school?
I think because it's like one of the last remaining like sacred spaces, right? Like it is a sacred space. It is where these students are spending a lot of their time, 8-9 hours a day, 5 days a week. And it's the space where they're thinking about their futures. They're thinking about what's going to come next after high school. And what I love about it is it's also increasingly becoming a distraction-free environment. A lot of school districts across the country are going to the kind of no cell phones in the school or in the classroom. And so, I mean, my goodness, where else can you think of a place, Bart, right now where you could actually get in front of the group you're trying to reach, prospective college students, in a distraction-free environment where they're thinking about their futures and education. And so I think that's why this is so powerful, valuable. I think back in the day, the only way to really reach those students is how we did it that traditional way of those, fall travel season. We're sending our counselors out. If you've worked in admissions like me, we've all been there.
Road warriors.
We get stuck in the lunchroom, Bart. The kids
behind the lonely table.
The kids are just staring at us. Maybe one kid comes up to talk and they want to do a major that we don't even offer. And so you think about how much money and time we're still investing in that. And I'm not ever advocating for us like ending fall travel and spring travel now too. Sure. But like we are now providing a way for schools to physically be present in those high schools all day, every day, up to 9 months out of the year, the whole school year if they want to be. And so I think that's how things are changing and kind of the power of this and kind of shifting our thinking around how do we get into this sacred space.
Well, the thing I like about it too, because being a parent, I mean, I spent plenty of time in the high school and my 4 kids were going through. So we would have orchestra concerts or sporting events. And I remember walking through the hallways and parents are seeing this stuff too, because it's not like it's just temporarily there. That stuff's running 24/7. Posters are up 24/7. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's, again, I think it's something that a lot of people have heard about NextGrad and kind of know the name. I don't think they really understood like that's what we've built, and it's actually still growing every day. And so I think, we're going to see a lot of people kind of grow with their interest of like, well, wow, how do we get on board or how can we be present there?
Well, and I think I work with a lot of schools, and I often try to help them understand that you need to diversify your brand awareness, because a lot of people are still like, hey, let's throw a lot of money into digital for brand awareness, which it has a place. But I would argue that you could probably peel off some of your digital spend for brand awareness and do something like NextGrad, because I think that's going to make a big difference. And that's going to help you. I mean, yes, it's digital, it's automated, it's trackable with your digital spends. But I think there's something with a physical presence and the analog touch points that I can see something while I'm walking in my peripheral vision that catches my attention, that I might stop for 15, 20 seconds to learn a little bit more, maybe scan a QR code. Tell me a little bit about, why you think that really matters.
So, yeah, I think right now we're like at this pivotal time in our world, just in general, with the emergence of all things AI. And Bart, you and I both, you are our industry's leading expert on AI. Always, everybody I talk to, I'm always like, you need to listen to Bart. You need to so things are changing rapidly and quickly. And at times it feels like we're kind of in this race to kind of automate everything that can be automated. How quickly can we build agents and deploy new sophisticated bots for the sake of, efficiency and scale. But I still every day keep waking up, like kind of asking myself, what is best for the students? Are we doing what's best for the students? And here's what I think's like most alarming about all this that I don't think enough people are talking about. I just read an ad. An ad fraud study, and I want to kind of read. Normally, I'm not reading stuff, but I want to make sure I get this for all the listeners. So I was just checking out this research study by Juniper Research that revealed already in this current year of 2026, global fraud losses are projected to hit 100 billion across our traditional advertising platforms of Google, Meta, and Bing.
Wow.
We've moved past this era of just like simple bots and scripts. And with AI, there are fully autonomous agents that are engaging with ads and content like they're real people. And so we can no longer, if our colleges and all of the money we're investing in our traditional marketing outreach on those platforms, we no longer can be guaranteed it's real eyeballs that are seeing that content. And so I just think, to your point, Bart, about, we don't want to get away from digital advertising, but maybe there needs to be a shift of where we focus kind of the resources, the money we're going to spend, because it's just changing so fast. And, again, that's where I think NextGrad is so well positioned, not only now, but in these coming years, because as our friends on the college side are desperately now looking for, well, what else can we do? If we can't rely on that, where else can we kind of reach and spend and be confident? I think that's where NextGrad's really going to emerge here in the coming years as one of those kind of just traditional line item budgets where we're going to be investing money there to make sure we have real eyeballs seeing our content.
I agree. I think that diversification in your marketing budget is so critical, especially as things change over the next few years with engagement and enrollment. Like you said, AI is going to change a lot. Google at their conference a couple months ago announced that, the search bar is going away, guys. And we have to, if we're relying 100% on those areas or Meta, and again, I'm not saying don't do it. You need to do it. But I'm saying if that is where all of your eggs are in one basket, you need to really look at other opportunities. And I think NextGrad is a really good one. So any final piece of advice or a tip that you might be willing to give everybody as we kind of close up here?
I would say, I mentioned this term earlier, and I would just say this again. If you don't currently have an in-school media strategy, so if you're hearing that right now and you're listening and you're like, one, I kind of don't even know what that is. Yeah. I definitely don't think we have one. That has to change immediately. You have to figure out what is our actual, if you work in enrollment and marketing, you need to figure out what is our in-school media strategy and get that established sooner rather than later. That would be my kind of final thing that I would really encourage everyone to think about.
Okay, that's awesome. Soup, I know that you are one of the more prolific guys on LinkedIn, but if somebody just did not know that, what's the best way for the listeners to connect with you or follow your work at NextGrad?
Yeah, definitely. I love when people reach out on LinkedIn. Feel free, if we're not already connected, shoot me that connection request. You can shoot me a DM. If I don't respond right away, just follow up. I don't want to miss something, but also that traditional email, which is just harrison@nextgrad.com. You can certainly shoot me an email as well. Always happy just to talk all things enrollment, marketing, career, you name it. I love this industry. Always excited to make new connections and build new relationships. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Well, Soup, I'm so grateful for you joining us today. And just a couple takeaways that I want to make sure everybody heard loud and clear. Look at that in-school media plan. What is that? Are you diversifying enough of your marketing spend to really get in the right places in front of your watering holes, which comes from my book, Chasing Mission Fit? And I really think that something like NextGrad is a really good opportunity for you to look at that and really try to figure that out. And I think there's some great opportunities that Soup and his team would be able to help you out with. So again, thanks, Soup. Appreciate it.
Always great connecting with you, Bart.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast. And as a special thanks to our friends over at NextGrad, first impressions matter. So make sure that you're making yours where it counts most. Visit nextgrad.com to learn more. NextGrad, where students see you first. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with a colleague and join us on LinkedIn at the Higher Ed Marketer. This podcast is powered by Kaler Solutions, your trusted partner in Mission Fit Marketing. You know what? We'll see you next week with another great guest.
The Higher Ed Marketer Podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast Network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.